hahanda para sa state visit ng Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. sa China sa susunod na linggo sa January 3 to 5, 2023. Pero bago yan, narito muna ang mga bagong appointees ng Board of Directors ng Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority at PAGCOR. Okay. Para sa Board of Directors ng SBMA, Alan Troy Dandan Bakir, member representing the national government. Edelberto Salgo Mozo, member representing business and investment sectors. Tomas Fausto Lahom III, member representing business and investment sectors. Honorario Cabagio Aliado III, acting member representing the private sector. Jose Marie Balandra Ponce, acting member representing private sector. Kenneth Lemuel Go Rementilla, acting member representing the private sector. Amable Bangcod Tolentino, acting member representing private sector. And Maria Cecilia Bobadilla Bitare, acting member representing the private sector. At para sa na-appoint sa chairman ng Games and Amusement Board, si Mr. Richard Santos Clarin. Yan ang mga bagong appointments. And then, ngayon naman, para bigyan tayo ng overview ng state visit, makakasama natin si Assistant Secretary for Asian and Pacific Affairs of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Nathaniel Imperial. But bago yan, babasahin ko muna ang reason for the state visit to China. The President's visit to China will be his first state visit outside of ASEAN. China is one of the Philippines' major economic partners. 20% of the Philippines' total trade is with China. It has also become an important player for inbound foreign direct investments and development assistance to the country, particularly infrastructure projects. And to tell us more about that, please welcome DFA Assistant Secretary for Asian and Public Affairs, Nathaniel Imperial.
Maraming salamat, Ms. Daphne Paez. And magandang tanghali po sa inyong lahat. And Happy New Year, Yusek Garafil and members of the Malacañang Press Corps. The state visit of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to the People's Republic of China will take place on January 3 to 5, 2023. The President will be joined by the First Lady, former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Speaker of the House of Representatives Martin Romualdez, Secretary of Foreign Affairs Enrique Manalo, the Secretary of Finance, the Secretary of Trade and Industry, the Secretary of Tourism, the Secretary of Information and Communications Technology, and other cabinet secretaries whose presence may be needed to sign bilateral agreements with their Chinese counterparts. The Department of Foreign Affairs considers this state visit of great significance. It will be the first bilateral visit of the President to a non-ASEAN country since assuming the presidency. It will be the second face-to-face meeting between the two heads of state in less than 2 months. With both leaders receiving a fresh mandate in recent elections, there is an expectation that the state visit will set the tone of bilateral relations between the two countries in the next 5 to 6 years. The state visit is also expected to reaffirm the cordial and neighborly relations between the two countries, ensure continuity in many facets of the bilateral relationship, and chart new areas of engagement. It is also expected to build on the growing trade and investment ties between the two economies, as well as address security issues of mutual concern. During the state visit, between 10 to 14 bilateral government agreements are expected to be signed. These agreements represent cooperation in a broad range of areas, which include trade and investments, agriculture, renewable energy, infrastructure, development cooperation, people-to-people ties, and maritime security cooperation. The President will depart Manila in the early afternoon of January 3 and will arrive in Beijing in the early evening. The official activities of the President will begin on January 4 with 3 important meetings with Chinese leaders. His first meeting will be with Li Jianshu, Chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, which is equivalent to the Philippine legislature. His second meeting will be with Premier Li Keqiang. And his final and third meeting will be with his counterpart, President Xi Jinping. President Xi will host a dinner banquet for the President, the First Lady, and cabinet officials after their meeting. A sizable business delegation will be joining the President's trip. Business meetings will be held on January 4 and 5, and a number of major business deals are scheduled to be signed and finalized during the state visit. China, after all, is our country's largest trading partner, our largest source of imports, and second largest export destination. The President will depart China for Manila on January 5, ending his state visit. And I'm now open to answer your questions if you have some, if you have any.
Okay. Hi. This is on. Okay, we'll be taking some questions. Yeah, we will be taking some questions from the media. We have Vance Fernandez from Police Files.
Yes, ma'am. Police Files and DZRJ. Bakit pa rin itutuloy ng ating Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos ang pagbisita niya sa China sa kabila ng pagtaas ng COVID-19 doon?
Go ahead, sir.
Ang ating ugnayang panlabas sa China ay napaka-importante, and we have received assurances from our Chinese hosts that all arrangements are being made to ensure the safety of the President and his delegation during the visit. And a bubble arrangement has been agreed for the Philippine delegation to minimize the risk of exposure to the virus. And, may mga pagbisita talaga na hindi natin pwedeng i-postpone.
From Katrina Domingo of ABS-CBN.
Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista said that the Philippines should be cautious and consider stricter travel requirements for travelers coming from China to the Philippines. What is the DFA's position to this? Are you amenable to the Philippines reimposing the mandatory RT-PCR requirements and other travel restrictions such as mandatory quarantine for Chinese travelers?
Well, the position of the Department of Foreign Affairs is the position of the IATF on COVID-related matters, and we have not received any advisory from the IATF for now. But as far as the visit is concerned, every precaution is being undertaken to ensure that the delegation is not infected and does not bring back to the Philippines the new variants of the virus. So I hope that answers the question.
We have a question from Julie Baiza of 1PH.
Sir, will there be a discussion about West Philippine Sea and the planned joint oil and gas exploration?
Yeah. Well, on the WPS, the President wants a peaceful and stable situation in the West Philippine Sea and will continue to uphold our country's sovereignty and sovereign rights during his meetings with Chinese leaders. And under energy cooperation, the President may raise or continue his discussions with President Xi, which began, by the way, during their initial meeting in Bangkok on oil and gas cooperation.
Okay, thank you. From AFP, we have Michael Flores.
Asec, Bloomberg had a report last week about construction activities in unoccupied features in Spratly, and DFA has expressed concern related to this development. Will the President bring up this issue with President Xi, and what message is the President or what message does the President intend to convey with his counterpart, particularly on these developments that infringe on our sovereignty?
Well, we do not wish to preempt or second guess what the President will say to his counterparts, but the President will raise important issues affecting our bilateral relations, among them the issue on the West Philippine Sea. So we can't say how specific the discussions will be.
But how would you characterize this? Because you mentioned that the President wants a peaceful and stable discussion, but obviously this is a point of tension between, in terms of our relations with China.
Yes, in his meetings with Chinese leaders, including President Xi, the President will discuss the full range of our bilateral relations, both the positive aspects of it and the sensitive aspects of our relations, which includes the issue of the West Philippine Sea and China's activities in the area. The President has said that the maritime issues do not define the totality of our bilateral relations with China, but nevertheless, he acknowledges the importance of this issue, to our interests and to the Filipino people. So we expect that this issue will be discussed in the President's meetings with Chinese leaders.
Okay, question from Ivan Mayrina of GMA 7.
Thank you, ma'am. Asec, may we be clarified kung ano ho ang plano ng Philippine delegation kung sakali, mahigpit po kasi yung protocols ng Beijing pagdating sa mga kung sakali mag-positive, etc. Ano ho ang plano naman natin kung sakali nga, wag naman sana na may mag-positive?
Well, kailangan natin sundin siyempre ang protocols and restrictions ng Chinese government for the rest of the delegation. Kung meron mang magpositibo, natural na kailangan siya ma-quarantine and ma-isolate until gumaling siya. And only then will that person be allowed to return to the Philippines.
May nakalagay po kasi na mag-charter ng flight to bring back the positive person to the Philippines. Have arrangements to that effect been made by the
Well,
Philippine
all
side?
arrangements are made for every possible scenario. But in general, that's how it is. If a person tests positive, is supposed to isolate. And of course, that person cannot join the flight of the President for obvious reasons, right? So that person will have to wait until he tests negative before that person will go back to the Philippines. Because we also have to protect the Philippines from the spread of this new variants in China.
Okay, Maricel Halili.
Hi, sir. Magandang hapon po. Sir, does it mean, well, because of the cases of COVID-19, does it mean na the President will not meet the Filipino community in China?
That's correct. There will be no meeting between the President and the Filipino community, unfortunately, because of the situation there. But it's too bad, but we have to follow the COVID protocols there in China, so there cannot be any big gatherings, which is usually what the President does. When he goes overseas, he meets the Filipino community in big gatherings.
Sir, just a clarification dun sa question ni Ivan kanina about the quarantine. Does it mean na pag may nag-positive dun sa delegation, sa hospital ba sila maka-quarantine? And will they ride a commercial flight going back to the Philippines once na nag-negative? Ganun po ba?
That's our understanding. Our understanding is for the official delegation, there's a special facility for isolation.
Salamat, sir.
Yeah.
From Eden Santos.
Asec follow-up lang po dun kay Mase. Who will shoulder po dun sa gastos if in case po na may mag-positive sa mga kasama sa delegasyon?
Well, that's being worked out between the two sides.
And one more thing, kasi po nakalagay dun sa advisory, January 3 to 6. Ibig po ba sabihin niyo mas pinaikling panahon ng pagbisita ng Pangulo sa China ay kahit paano natakot pa rin siya dun sa posibleng surge po ng kaso ng COVID?
Well, no, the original schedule was January 3 to 5/6. So the president always had that option of leaving on the 5th. So, and that's what's going to happen.
Hindi naman po
So
natatakot.
there's no decision to shorten the visit. No, it's basically as scheduled.
Thank you po.
Okay, I think that is all we have. If that's enough for
May I
today.
just add
go ahead, sir.
some
Yes.
additional information? As was mentioned earlier, China is a very important economic partner of the Philippines. So one of the main focuses of this visit is really to foster stronger economic cooperation. No? So we expect a big business delegation to join the president's delegation, and there will be a lot of business deals that will be signed. Well, we will leave that matter to the DTI, not to explain further, and we don't want to preempt the news about the total investment pledges that will be made. But there's a very strong expectation that there's great interest from Chinese investors in the Philippine economy, especially in Philippine agriculture and renewable energy and nickel processing. Well, China imports 70% of its nickel ore and concentrates requirements from the Philippines. No? So there's a lot of potential in those sectors. And also, we expect an agreement on the importation of durian to be finalized. And the Chinese market has a voracious appetite for durian. So we expect a lot of interest in our durian exports and also possible investments in the durian producing regions in Mindanao. So you can call that some form of durian diplomacy, I guess. So, yeah, and there are other agreements. For example, on to avoid miscalculation and miscommunication in the West Philippine Sea, both sides have agreed to sign an agreement establishing direct communication between the foreign ministries of both countries at various levels, and that is expected to be signed by Secretary Manalo and his counterpart, State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, during the visit. And also, we plan to renew the agreement on our participation in the Belt and Road Initiative of China, which we believe complements the infrastructure program of the administration. Let me check if there are still other agreements worth mentioning. Yes, there's also a planned memorandum of understanding on digital cooperation, which will be signed by our Secretary of Trade and Industry. It has to do with exchange of best practices and capacity building in digital connectivity, data, emerging technologies, among other areas of cooperation. Also, we are looking at possible grants from China amounting to 1.5 billion renminbi. And a framework agreement for the 3 priority bridges crossing Pasig Marikina River and the Mangahan Floodway Bridges construction project. And this is very important too. We expect an agreement to be signed on tourism cooperation called Implementation Program of the MOU on Tourism Cooperation. As you well know, China was our second largest source of tourism in 2019. There were almost 1.8 million Chinese tourists who visited the Philippines. And now that China is planning to reopen hopefully after it recovers from this surge in COVID cases, we want to resume people-to-people exchanges, no? And we think it will be a big boost to our tourism sector, no? For its recovery after the pandemic. So, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very comprehensive. Thank you. Thank you very much, DFA Assistant Secretary for Asian and Public Affairs, Neil Imperial, for the very comprehensive briefing. And this ends our briefing for today. For the year, I wish you all a Happy New Year. Thank you.